The White Scars, who refer to themselves as the Horde of Jaghatai and were initially known as the Star Hunters during the dawn of the Great Crusade, stand as one of the most venerated Loyalist Space Marine chapters, one of the illustrious first founding chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. Their reputation precedes them across the Imperium of Man, where they are both feared and respected for their unparalleled expertise in mobile warfare. Renowned as the indisputable masters of lightning strike and hit-and-run tactics, the White Scars are particularly adept at employing Astartes assault bikes as their weapon of choice, with their ranks boasting significantly higher proportions of bike squads than any other chapter. These battle-hardened warriors will even bear ritual scars of honor, all the while fighting with ferocity and cunning of the nomadic steppe tribes from which they hail. Their homeworld, Mundus Planus, known to them as Chogoris, shaped their savage prowess. Their White Scars will descend upon their enemies with a terrifying speed, delivering relentless and ruthless strikes with an efficiency few dare match within the Imperium. As the successors of the official 5th Space Marine Legion, the White Scars draw their recruits from the most savage nomad tribes of Chogoris. Emulating the warlike spirits of the steppes, they employ swift and devastating assaults, using the fastest vehicles at their disposal. With hearts ablaze, they sally forth into battle with a cry of "For the Emperor" and the Khan on their lips, as they employ assaults with the fury of the storm. The Primarch of the White Scars is the formidable Jaghatai Khan, a warrior of unmatched prowess, and one of, if not the single fastest Primarch. And he would be noted as the only leader capable of uniting the wild tribes of the Chogoran steppes under a single banner. Before the Great Crusade reached Chogoris, Jaghatai had already forged a rather powerful kingdom, bringing all the nomadic tribes together against their city-dwelling oppressors of the Palatine Empire. The steppes would run red with blood of those who dared wrong them, as Jaghatai and his warriors united under black horsehair banners as they extracted their pound of flesh as vengeance. As the cities of Chogoris fell, their armies would be decimated, and the tribes would claim the land as their own. When the Great Crusade finally arrived, Jaghatai recognized in the Emperor a kindred spirit, one who shared his vision of unifying humanity. In that moment, he realized that the reunification of all mankind was the greatest prize he could ever seek. The 5th Legion would then swell with the ranks of Jaghatai's fiercest warriors, and the traditions of the Chogoran steppe would become deeply ingrained within the Legion. The savagery of the tribes would be infused into the Legion's gene seed, yet it would be tempered by the unwavering sense of honor and justice that Jaghatai so perfectly embodied. The White Scars are a chapter deeply rooted in the teachings of their Primarch, as Jaghatai Khan would notably hold a distinct set of beliefs that set himself and his legion apart within the Imperium of Man, as they revere the Emperor, not as a deity, but as the ultimate uniter of mankind, a leader whose vision they are committed to realizing. This belief distinguishes them significantly from the majority of the Imperium of Mankind, which has led them to have a notable distance from the Ecclesiarchy's doctrines, along with some issues with Space Marine chapters. For the White Scars, their mission is clear. They are the vanguard, tasked with annihilating the enemies of the Emperor in preparation for the future where he will rise from the Golden Throne to initiate a new Great Crusade, a campaign destined to bring unity to the galaxy. On that fateful day, they believe Jaghatai Khan will return from the void to lead them once more. Central to the White Scars' identity is the lightning bolt that emblazons their chapter badge. This symbol is not merely decorative, as it is an embodiment of the swift and devastating style of warfare, which is mirrored in the honor scars that each warrior proudly bears upon their face. These scars are not just marks of valor, but deeply symbolic, and represent the chapter's connection to the elemental powers invoked by their Stormseers. As long as these primal forces respond to the Stormseer's call, the White Scars are confident that they will remain nigh unstoppable unstoppable in battle. The ritual scarification is a sacred practice within the chapter, as every White Scar, upon fully proving themselves and being accepted as a neophyte, will receive the ritual facial scars known as the Honor Scar. This mark is a rite of passage within the chapter, signifying the warrior's full integration into the White Scars and the acceptance of its values and traditions. However, one of the most profound aspects of White Scar's culture is their notable distaste and aversion of dreadnoughts. While other chapters may view these mighty cybernetic constructs as symbols of honor and resilience, the White Scars see them as prisons for the soul. To them, death should allow a warrior's soul to roam free in the afterlife, unshackled by the confines of a mechanical body. And the mere idea of being entombed within a dreadnought is anathema, a fate that contradicts their beliefs in a soul's journey across the vast plains of the netherworld. In essence, the White Scars are warriors who embrace both the physical and spiritual aspects of their heritage, blending the savagery of the steppes with a deep sense of honor and duty, as they remain ever vigilant, ready to unleash their fury upon the enemies of mankind, all the while holding fast to the belief that one day their father will return to lead them in the ultimate battle for humanity's fate. In the shadows of the long night and the turmoil of the Age of Strife, the Emperor of Mankind had embarked on a mission to unite humanity under a single banner. The horrors of the interhuman conflict and the ever-looming threat of chaos, along with hostile Xenos and the frailty of human nature, necessitated a bold and unyielding response. This response took shape in the form of the Emperor's grand vision to ensure humanity's dominance over the Milky Way galaxy. As a part of this vision, the Emperor raised new armies from the forces he had already unified in Terra during the brutal unification wars in the late 30th millennium. Amongst these forces were the Space Marine Legions, genetically enhanced superhuman soldiers created to be the spearhead of the Great Crusade, a campaign that would begin proper around 798.M30, with the goal of reuniting the scattered colonies of mankind under a single banner of the Imperium of Mankind. Each legion would be endowed with the unique genetic traits of their Primarch, which shaped their role in the Great Crusade. The 5th Legion, later known as the White Scars, in essence found themselves to be pathfinders of this epic conquest. These warriors were often the first to venture into uncharted territories, far from the bounds of the expanding Imperium, and they would be organized into small mobile units, leading the 5th to move swiftly and silently, probing the weaknesses of their enemies and delivering sudden and deadly strikes. They were a sharp and precise blade in the hands of a master strategist, Jaghatai Khan, their Primarch. They would be forged from outcasts into a force capable of single-handedly changing the course of history. As the dark days of the Horus Heresy unfolded, the White Scars would become subject of both suspicion and doubt. Their loyalty was often questioned by their allies and assumed by their enemies, as they had often operated separately and on the fringes of known space, far from the support and the camaraderie of their brother legions. While other legions built intricate networks of trust, treaties, and mutual support, the White Scars would remain apart, embodying and embracing the traditions of independence and willfulness of their new home. This reputation for solitude and unpredictability made them both a prize and a threat for those who sought to control the Imperium. In their solitude, the White Scars would become renowned for their swift hit-and-run tactics, as they operated as a force upon whom the outcome of the Horus Heresy would depend. Yet this very nature made them a legion to be either courted or crushed by those who aspired for the throne, especially after the galaxy descended into civil war. With the overview now done, we will focus in on the history proper of the White Scars. In the annals of history, the origins and early campaigns of the 5th, known as the White Scars, would remain shrouded in secrecy and obscurity, as their legacy was often overlooked and has been veiled by mystery due to the passage of time, the bloodshed of war, and the inherent secrecy of the Legion itself. Yet within these early days lies the blueprint of what the Legion would ultimately become, a force feared and misunderstood from their very inception. The 5th Legion was set apart from their brethren legions, seldom seen amongst the massed ranks during the Unification Wars. However, despite their relative isolation, they were amongst the first to draw blood in the Emperor's name. The initial ranks of the 5th Legion were drawn from the tech-nomadic tribes of the Toleran Basin, a rather hardy people who had survived the harsh frozen wastelands in vast mechanized crawlers throughout the long years of the Age of Strife. Later, they would recruit from broader Terran stock, representing various racial and geographic origins. However, by the time of the Ulnar Crusade and the cusp of the 31st millennium, these Terran-born warriors would become a hyper-minority within the Legion's ranks. In the early days of the Unification War, the 5th Legion served as the eyes and ears of the Emperor's burgeoning empire. Unlike the 16th Legion, who often fought alongside the Emperor's other warriors on the front lines in the initial conquest, the 5th Legion was entrusted with a solitary and perilous task of seeking out strongholds of gene-wrought demagogues and warlords who ruled the war-torn remnants of old Earth. Numbering only in a few hundred warriors during these earliest days, the 5th Legion operated in small, highly mobile cadres, often consisting of fewer than a dozen Astartes. The missions they undertook tested the limits of their post-human physiques in ways unlike the battlefield horrors their brethren would face. Constantly on the move and far beyond the boundaries of the Emperor's expanding domain, the 5th Legion braved the worst of old Earth's desolation and landscapes twisted and broken by radphage, war, and psi-plagues. Places where mere mortals could not hope to survive became their most renowned treading ground. These warriors, in essence, charted the Emperor's rise to power, enduring what few others could, as they scouted ahead of the massed armies of unification, identifying and neutralizing the threats that lay in the path of the Emperor's conquest. In these endeavors, the 5th Legion began to forge an identity that would become defined by them as an elusive and deadly force, forever on the edge of the known, and always at the forefront of the unknown. In the twilight years of the Unification Wars, the 5th Legion operated at the fringes of the Emperor's grand design, a shadowy force which stalked the remnants of old Earth's warlords and decadent empires. Wherever they encountered strength, they would prowl the periphery, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. When they found weakness, they left only devastation in their wake. By the time the main legions of the Proto-Astartes would arrive, their foes would be already severely weakened and distracted by the constant presence and the relentless work of the 5th. The armies of the Unification Wars found their empires ripe for the taking, thanks to the bloody groundwork laid by these early warriors. The Legion's earliest recruits were uniquely suited to this grim task, as they were drawn from the clans of the Toleran Basin. These men had survived the frozen salt wastes of the North for centuries, as a testament to their fierce independence and the stoic resolve which would be integrated into the Legion proper. They had weathered the terrors of Old Night by isolating themselves amidst the sub-zero wastelands of Thule, where they would master the harsh dictates of survival. These were not just killers, they were machine smiths and expert survivors, traits that carried over to the earliest cadres of the 5th Legion. Once brought under the Emperor's banner, these warriors proved to be ideal pathfinders. Yet their independent streak often led them to ignore orders from anyone other than the Emperor himself, much to the frustration of a myriad of commanders. That, or a commander who had personally earned the respect of the individuals he was attempting to bring under his control. This trait, while a source of frustration for some of the Emperor's generals, was likely a calculated decision by the Emperor, which was in essence a recognition of their unique role within his grand plan. Despite their insular nature and the resentment it occasionally provoked, few would doubt the 5th's efficiency and effectiveness in battle. Their fortitude and shrewd intelligence earned them the grudging acceptance and respects of the grand armies of unification. But their role was one without major glory, operating for years at a time, far from the heart of conflict. The 5th Legion would often go unrecognized. Once they had completed their mission in drawing out the enemies of the Emperor into a weakened position, charting their strongholds, and leaving them weakened and vulnerable, the other legions marched to claim the final victory. The sacrifices of the Fifth would go largely unrecorded in the battle honors of the Unification Wars. Few now remember the Star Hunters as the first of these companies was known, or the daring raids launched on the Alban fortress of Durbris, which paved the way for the initial invasions of that land. As the Emperor consolidated his stronghold on Terra and the surrounding worlds, the 5th Legion was amongst the first to depart the Sol system proper, as they were in essence shattered into 100 pioneer companies, each operating as a tiny legion in its own right. One such pioneer company was led by Captain Cornelius Dürer, as it ventured along a warp current known only to the few who dared travel far beyond Terra's influence. It was this first company who surveyed the mining world of Chthoniya, submitting the now infamous report describing it as a nest of serpents coiling in the dark that we would be better to destroy. Horus, the future War Master, is said to have remarked on this report with humor, recognizing the grim truth of it all, as he would go on to favor Captain Dürer and his company, often requesting their services as pathfinders for his own fleet. Amongst the greater generals of that age, Horus alone made a point of recognizing the pioneer companies of the 5th. In return, the Terran veterans of the 5th Legion accorded Horus a respect few others were granted. For over half a Terran century, the 5th Legion waged what amounted to a solitary fragmented campaign, each of its companies separated by vast distances, leading to their sense of unity slowly fading into the void. Their heroics performed beyond the borders of the Emperor's ever-expanding domains would go largely unnoticed by the lords of the Imperium. In these forgotten years, the foundation of the White Scar's mastery of hit-and-run warfare was laid, born from the stark necessity of their mission. Rarely numbering more than 1,000, they stood against the dark empires that loomed beyond the edges of known space, a brave few facing the terror of the outer darkness, with no hope of aid or reinforcement, as they struck without warning, raiding and killing with ruthless efficiency, drawing out their foes and testing their strengths and weaknesses, learning their tactics as they would be ever vigilant, observant as they learned, then broadcasting this hard-won knowledge, paid with the blood of their brothers, so that larger expeditionary fleets could deliver the Emperor's wrath upon the enemies of mankind more efficiently. In those early days, the 5th Legion lived by a single creed. Each new day is a victory. Survival against impossible odds was the challenge that they faced, a challenge that they would meet with pragmatism and an unyielding willingness to sacrifice everything in the name of victory. Each battle would extract a toll, another brother dead, another war machine damaged beyond repair. As they fought deeper and deeper into the outer reaches of the galaxy, opportunities to recover their losses grew ever rarer. Slowly but surely, the 5th Legion was being worn down by the relentless pressures of war. Their own stubborn commitment to prosecuting it in their own way was in part responsible for this. For these warriors who had always struggled in the shadows of their brother legions, the very idea of asking for aid was tantamount to anathema to their very beings, a bitter pill to swallow which was far worse than the prospect of their own extinction. To live and die by their own terms would seem like a much better choice. Were it not for the sudden and unexpected discovery of their lost Primarch, the 5th Legion would have continued fighting until nothing else remained. But with the arrival of the Khan, the 5th Legion was transformed, their solitary crusade given a new purpose. Now, to understand how the Legion was transformed by their Primarch, we must go into the Primarch's own history. Jaghatai Khan, Primarch of the White Scars, and the Khan of Khans, carved out a reputation during both the Great Crusade and subsequent Horus Heresy. Unwaveringly loyal, his Legion would mirror his restless nature and that of the Berkut, the great raptors of the plains of Chogoris, as the Primarchs were scattered across the galaxy thanks to the warp by the malevolent machinations of the ruinous powers of chaos along with the worst mother in history, Jaghatai Khan's gestation capsule would land on the vast steppe lands of the feudal world known in older imperial charts as Mundus Planus. This world, which would later be identified as Chogoris, was the home of a society that had managed to largely recover from the great ravages of the Age of Strife up to a level of pre-industrial development. By the late 30th millennium, Chogoris had evolved technologically to a Renaissance-like state, recently rediscovering the integration of gunpowder into their weaponry. The dominant culture was organized under a feudal aristocracy ruled by a monarch known as the Palatine. Jaghatai was discovered as an infant by Ong Khan, the chieftain of the Talks, a nomadic tribe on Chogoris. Ong Khan, recognizing the infant's extraordinary potential, would adopt him as his own, anticipating that he would grow into a warrior of unparalleled greatness. Tragically, Ong Khan and his Kashing would later be slain by the rival Kurvad tribe in an act that demanded vengeance according to Chogoran customs. Despite his youth, Jaghatai already was the finest warrior of his tribe, and he led his people in retaliation against the slayers of his kin. In stark contrast to traditional revenge raids, which typically involved small-scale skirmishes or the theft of livestock, Jaghatai launched a single divisive campaign. Over the course of one night, he obliterated this tribe, slaughtering every inhabitant to their last, along with taking the chieftain's head as a grim trophy. This brutal act effectively ended the feud and solidified Jaghatai's reputation as a formidable leader and a ruthless warrior. Following this victory, Jaghatai was elected as a Khan of his tribe, as he pledged to unite the tribes of the steppe and eradicate the cycle of eternal warfare that had long plagued their existence. Jaghatai Khan, now the young and dynamic leader of the Talsarks, embarked on a relentless campaign to subjugate the disparate tribes of Chogoris. His strategy was both straightforward and brutal. Every tribe faced a stark ultimatum: submit to his rule or face annihilation. Given his devastating reputation he earned from obliterating the tribe that had slain his father, resistance was rare, if any. Jaghatai, however, was not without honor. Those tribes which capitulated willingly were treated with respect, and many of their members were integrated into his elite Kashig, serving alongside him as the vanguard of his new empire. In his unification, Jaghatai Khan used both military prowess and an extraordinary, almost superhuman charisma to draw followers from across the steppe. He mandated military service for all Chogoran tribes, and strategically combined warriors from various tribes whose fighting styles may have clashed into mixed units. This approach was designed to dismantle old tribal loyalties and forge a new unified allegiance to him rather than to their previous affiliations. The consolidation would extend beyond military units to the tribes themselves. Jaghatai restructured, merged, and sometimes split tribes to foster unity and end centuries of constant conflict. His leadership saw the formation of a cohesive confederation under his command, leading to his ascension as the Khan of Khans, or the Kagan. One of his most notable achievements was the defeat of a formidable cult, spreading its malignant influence across Chogoris. Rallying a coalition of 10,000 warriors of the steppe, Jaghatai led a dramatic cavalry charge against the cultists and their rudimentary black power weapons. Despite suffering rather heavy casualties, the tribe's charge was victorious, and they pursued the fleeing cultists with a relentless tenacity that would leave no enemy alive. Throughout the age-old history of Chogoris, the lands of the steppe tribes had remained largely unnoticed by the advanced Eastern Empire, which had controlled vast regions of their continent. This empire, with its towering cities and powerful princes, had viewed the barren lands of the steppe primarily as a venue for sport and hunting. After a decade of unifying the Empty Quarter, Jaghatai's campaign faced a dramatic twist. He was ensnared in an avalanche, a cruel twist of fate that led to his discovery by the son of the Palatine, the emperor of the Great Eastern Empire. This nobleman indulged in the sport of hunting Empty Quarter tribesmen, and unfortunately for himself, he had stumbled upon Jaghatai in the mountain, marking the beginning for a new and unexpected chapter in the Primarch's storied life. The exact sequence of the events which led to this are not known in precise detail, but historical accounts tell of a lone survivor from a hunting party who returned bearing the severed head of the empire's leader's son, along with a message saying, "The people of the steppe are yours no longer." Outraged by this affront, this imperial leader mustered his forces and marched westward with his elite heavy infantry and armored lancers to confront the rebellious tribes of the Empty Quarter. What followed was a clash that raged for a full day and night, culminating in a decisive defeat for these imperial forces. The empire's forces, clad in heavy mail plate and armor, were accustomed to close combat with heavy cavalry and infantry, supported by light infantry. However, they were ill prepared for the swift and mobile tactics of Jaghatai's forces, the Khan of Khans employing the same agility and relentless bowfire which had characterized his own tribe's tactics, and they successfully routed the heavily armored troops of the Palatine. The Palatine, barely escaping capture, was eventually killed as Jaghatai's forces surged into the territories previously controlled by the Eastern Empire's nobility. This victory was a significant milestone on Jaghatai's path to dominance, paving the way for his eventual coronation as a true ruler of all of Chogoris. Employing strategies similar to his earlier campaigns amongst the Horus tribes, Jaghatai expanded his control across the entirety of the continent. To every city, his armies offered a stark choice: submit to his rule or face annihilation. His reign was marked by a combination of cruelty and generosity, both openly displayed. To enforce his will and consolidate his power, in less than 20 standard years, Jaghatai's empire stretched across Chogoris, ending the protracted conflicts that had plagued the planet. His rule established a period of relative peace that was maintained through the fear of total destruction for those who defied his laws. However, the world that Jaghatai might have shaped in isolation from the broader currents of civilization would be abruptly altered when the Emperor of Mankind arrived. His intervention marked the beginning of a new chapter in Jaghatai Khan's storied life, one that would forever reshape his destiny and the future of the White Scars. As it seems, Jaghatai Khan's campaign of global conquest drew to a close less than 6 solar months before the Emperor's arrival on Chogoris in 865 M30. In a twist of fate, it was not a pioneer company of the 5th Legion, renowned for their exploratory prowess, but that of the Sons of Horus, accompanied by both the Primarch and the Emperor, who rediscovered this world. On Chogoris, Jaghatai had achieved a remarkable feat, uniting the fractured tribes of the steppe and subjugating the entire planet under his dominant rule. This accomplishment rivaled any of his brother Primarch's early achievements, and the Emperor, recognizing his success, hailed Jaghatai as one of his true sons and an inheritor of the legacy he envisioned. Yet despite Jaghatai's grand accomplishments, his destiny was irrevocably altered. Once a sovereign ruler and conqueror, he was now to serve as subordinate to the Emperor's own grand ambitions. This transition was not an easy one for a man who had vanquished kings and tyrants across Chogoris. Nevertheless, the great Khan, with his indomitable spirit, would bow to the Emperor and become his tool. Historical records often depict Jaghatai as being awed into submission, but in his personal writings, it revealed a more calculated approach. Recognizing the benefits of the imperium and the Emperor's secular domain, Jaghatai understood the strategic advantages of allying with the Emperor. His decision mirrored the very ultimatum he had once offered the tribes and the cities of Chogoris: submit and thrive, or resist and perish. Thus, Jaghatai negotiated terms that would ensure the protection of his people and a defined role within the burgeoning imperium. From here, he would embrace the new challenges with a sense of private satisfaction, relishing the opportunity to escape the drudgery of governance and return to the battlefield once more as a conqueror. Despite his mastery of conquest on Chogoris, Jaghatai Khan faced a steep learning curve with the advanced weaponries and war machines of the Imperium. As conflicts across the galaxy intensified, there was little time for lengthy introductions in Terran court etiquette or imperial history. The Emperor's forces were stretched thin at this point, with increasingly formidable Xenos realms and cultures, along with the hidden remnants of fallen human civilizations. Although the Emperor and many Primarchs viewed the conquest of Chogoris as a testament to Jaghatai's martial prowess, not all were satisfied with the brief introduction he received. Both Reboot Guilliman and Rogel Dorn voiced their concerns that the lack of comprehensive training in the Imperium's foundations would hinder Jaghatai's ability to integrate effectively with its complex factions and politics. Their concerns, however, were largely unheeded. Regardless of this, Jaghatai Khan was formally invested with the full authority of the 5th Legion, bearing the title of Khan amongst his peers and Kagan, the Khan of Khans, amongst his people. In the records of imperial history, the title of Master of the 5th Legion bore little significance during this period, for the Legion was dispersed across the galaxy, engaged in a myriad of unending conflicts. Jaghatai Khan, now at the helm of these scattered forces, faced a challenge that would have daunted many of his peers, but this was one that aligned perfectly with his experience and expertise. Emulating the strategies he had used on Chogoris, the great Khan embarked on the task of consolidating his legion. He began by recruiting from amongst his Chogoran followers, those prepared to undergo the intense transformations required to become Space Marines. This new corps of warriors formed the bedrock for his legion's resurgence. Simultaneously, Jaghatai issued a grand summons to the dispersed pioneer companies of the 5th. This call was broadcasted through astropathic messages and courier ships. However, it would take years to reach the furthest outposts of the 5th Legion. By the time Jaghatai consolidated his sons in 865 M30, nearly a decade had passed before the majority of the companies had been assembled on Chogoris, and still many remained out of contact, still engaged in distant campaigns well into the 31st millennium. When the disparate elements of the 5th Legion finally gathered in the skies above Chogoris, they were anything but a unified force. Each company had maintained its own identity and developed its own distinct culture, viewing the others with both suspicion and disdain. The assembly was a consolidation of isolated groups, each marked by distinct heraldries and traditions, gathered together in a foreign land by a man they knew very little about. On the vast plains of the empty quarter, Jaghatai Khan witnessed this eclectic assembly, 1,000 different symbols and warriors from countless worlds, bound only by their shared genetic heritage. To forge unity, he integrated them into the Chogoran customs, combining said customs with the Legion's own culture. Through rituals and traditions of the Chogoran steppe tribes, Jaghatai transformed the 5th Legion, the Star Hunters, into the White Scars. This process was marked by trials of blood, pain, and ritual scarification, which cemented their loyalty both to the Kagan and to each other. A pivotal ceremony within these was known as the Bloodening or the Ascension, which was used to mark the Legion's official reformation. This ritual was adopted from Chogoran traditions and was comprised of two main parts: a cut and a new name. In the expansive fields of the Empty Quarter, over 50,000 warriors participate, each carving a distinctive scar upon their faces. These marks varied in size and pattern, each symbolizing their allegiance. Amongst the Chogoran tribesmen, such scars denoted tribal affiliations, but for the new White Scars, the exact patterns held little significance. The second part of the ritual involved renaming each warrior to signify their new identity within Jaghatai's Ordu. This practice was common amongst the early Imperium's warrior societies, where such trials reinforced solidarity and loyalty within the new culture. On Chogoris, these ceremonies had long since unified the tribes, and Jaghatai harnessed their powers to forge a cohesive fighting force. In the aftermath of the Scarring and Ascension, the newly dubbed White Scars were encouraged by Jaghatai to engage in the noble pursuits of Chogoris, in a way mirroring the actions taken by one of the few brothers he was close to, Sanguinius. These noble pursuits included calligraphy, hunting, and the recounting of ancient tales. Jaghatai melded Chogoran traditions with the operational ethos of his legion, not stripping them completely of their origins and traditions, but rather enriching and creating a new and unique blend of practicality and superstition, which at times would be noted as conflicting with the imperial truth and their secular doctrines. Jaghatai's reluctance to fully align his legion with the principles of the imperial truth created no lack of friction between him and some of his fellow Primarchs, particularly Lorgar and Rabut Guilliman. His discord highlighted the ongoing tensions between the Great Khan's distinct cultural identity and the Imperium's unified secular identity and vision. Following the grand ceremonies on Chogoris, the Great Khan led his now unified White Scars into their inaugural campaign. This pivotal operation marked their first collective engagement since departing Terra. The chosen battleground was that of the tumultuous Corlean Circle, a region notorious for its lawless and volatile nature. Decades earlier, the 103rd Pioneer Company, known as the Soul Hunters, had surveyed this region, and they had reported that it was a haven for renegade factions and hostile Xenos entities, which presented a formidable challenge to any invading force. The Corlean Circle was comprised of several feudal and/or inhospitable worlds, which offered few strategic resources or immediate benefits. Nevertheless, Jaghatai Khan's choice of this area was rather deliberate and strategic. The Kagan's strategy involved pitting his legion against formidable enemies that none of their single companies could ever independently overcome, forcing them to win only through cohesive legion-wide efforts. To facilitate this change, Jaghatai would integrate his elite Kashing warriors such as Qingza, Targatai Yingshige, and Hasik Nyang Khan into various companies, allowing them to lend their own traditions and knowledge of how the Khan operated into the Legion. These veterans were tasked with leading by example, embodying the Khan's teachings and setting the stage and standard for how the White Scars were to conduct themselves in battle. Of the 80,000 warriors that were dispatched to this circle, roughly 1/10 of them would fall over the course of 5 Terran years. This intense crucible of combat forged the survivors into a cohesive unit, their bonds solidified through shared trials and bloodshed. After this, the White Scars would be confronted by the Orcish hordes in the Singar, Mar, and Morhigas systems, and they would deal with them by using the aggressive hit-and-run tactics that worked so well on the Chogoran steppes. Severely outnumbered, the White Scars' tactics leveraged their superior mobility and combat prowess to great effort. The deeper systems of the Corlean Circle presented a rather particular challenge, with companies now isolated for nearly 3 years before the Legion was able to secure the outer regions. Here, the Pioneer Company's original survival skills combined with the Chogoran's recruit's blade mastery would be tested to their limits. Unlike other legions who might have faltered or retreated to regroup, the White Scars thrived in this adversity. Drawing from their strength and that of their Primarch, they persevered. Jaghatai Khan's personal involvement in every battle would become legendary. His daring and skill on the battlefield inspired his warriors to fight harder and better, just for the chance to fight alongside him. The Primarch's leadership transcended mere loyalty to the Imperium, as it fostered a deep and personal allegiance to the Khan and the thrill of battle. By the campaign's end, the Corlean Circle was secured, and its inhabitants would fall under the Great Khan's dominance. The brutal conflict had not only cemented the White Scars' unity, but revitalized their ranks and gave them an identity all their own. The rigorous trials of the Corlean Circle, coupled with the replenishment from Chogoris and Terra, revitalized the Legion. As they emerged from this campaign, not as the Soul Hunters or as the Emperor's scouts, but as the White Scars, who were merely no longer shadows on the fringes of the Great Crusade, but under Jaghatai's command, they were poised to stand resolutely at the forefront of the Emperor's crusade, shoulder to shoulder with their brother legions. As the White Scars now returned to the Great Crusade proper, they did not do so as disparate pioneer companies, but as a formidable, unified legion. This era marked the zenith of the Great Crusade during the final century of the 30th millennium, and it witnessed the nascent imperium extending its reach to the furthest corners of the galaxy. Here, the fledgling imperium had overcome the formidable threats which lie at its boundaries, but new challenges would emerge, testing their supremacy. In this tumultuous era, numerous malevolent factions and defiant empires sought to claim what was rightfully mankind's and the Emperor's domain. The Legion Astartes would then be challenged with eradicating these threats, and the White Scars would distinguish themselves as prominent figures in this grand conflict. Despite their smaller numbers compared to some of their sibling legions like the Ultramarines, they excelled due to their relentless and audacious approach to warfare. These were the days of intense conflict and swift victories, which were characterized by relentless onslaughts against enemies too vast to quantify, whereas other legions relied on meticulous strategy and disciplined tactics. The White Scars approached their enemies with a fierce and unrestrained vigor. When encountering a weak or exposed adversary, they overran their positions with ruthless efficiency, harnessing their speed and ferocity to obliterate resistance before they could reinforce themselves. Conversely, when facing entrenched or formidable foes, they adeptly targeted weaknesses, paving a way for subsequent legions to exploit the devastation left in their wake. Although some perceived them as barbaric marauders akin to Angron's World Eaters or Lehman Russ's Space Wolves, or even the Revenant Legion of old, historical records paint a more nuanced picture. The White Scars were indeed pathfinders in both tactical and strategic realms, exhibiting a keen proficiency among the legion's Astartes. Their methods, rather than being barbaric and brash, were bold and direct, which were the reason they often clashed with the methodical approaches of legions such as the Imperial Fists of Rogel Dorn or Reboot Guilliman's own Ultramarines. The White Scars held a deep appreciation for both learning and knowledge. Many amongst them were skilled artificers, philosophers, and artists, vaulting their wisdom as much as any weaponry. Their strategic insight was not merely a reflection of their martial prowess, but also of their intellectual depth. They were likened to the wind, omnipresent yet elusive, bringing both a fervent zeal for battle and a profound enjoyment of their pursuit across the stars. Sanguinius, one of the few true contemporaries of Jaghatai Khan and the White Scars, famously remarked on the nature of the 5th Legion, noting, "They smile often and laugh when they kill." This vivid description underscored the complex character and fierce yet untamed identity of the White Scars, which was governed by the principles of duty and honor, defined by the Chogoris Code. Though they embraced a rather savage demeanor in combat, the White Scars were disciplined and bound by their strict code of conduct, which differentiated them from their more unsavory counterparts. Their reputation for cruelty and insolence was often a result of a misinterpretation rather than a reflection of their true nature.